The Uber's tires crunched over the gravel right at 6:52 p.m., and the sound felt louder than it should have. Like the driveway itself was announcing me. My grandpa's place sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac outside Columbus, all white trim and soft porch lights. Every Friday dinner looked the same from the outside. Warm windows, the smell of food, someone laughing before you even opened the door. I had a bottle of red wine in my hand. I'd bought it on purpose because my mom mentioned last week that Grandpa Harold was running low on the one he likes. It was the kind of thing I always did. Small, careful gestures that said, "I'm trying. I belong here. Please don't be annoyed I'm taking up space." Before I went in, I checked my phone out of habit. No new messages, no missed calls, just the rideshare receipt and my bank app, which I'd been pretending not to look at all week. I put the phone face down and walked up the stone path. 1. Inside, the air was heavy with roasted chicken and something buttery, mashed potatoes probably. The dining room was already full. Plates were set. Water glasses clinked. Someone had the TV off, which in my family meant this is official dinner, not casual hanging out. My mom, Diane, was closest to the kitchen, already sitting like she'd been there for an hour. My stepdad, Mark, was beside her, scrolling with one thumb and looking up only when someone spoke directly to him. Across from them sat my older brother, Cole, relaxed in a clean button-down like he'd just stepped out of a meeting. And at the head of the table, Grandpa Harold sat in his usual chair, back straight, napkin on his lap, watching everything without needing to say much. When he saw me, his whole face lifted. "There he is," he said, loud enough that everyone paused for a second. "Come on in." I smiled and held up the wine. "Brought you something. You mentioned last time." "You didn't have to," he said, but he was already taking the bottle, turning it slightly to read the label. He nodded once, satisfied, and set it beside him like it belonged there. I slid into my seat and tried to let my shoulders drop. My stomach growled quietly. I realized I'd skipped lunch again, worked through it like I always did, rebuilding a client's site layout and telling myself I'd eat after I finished one more thing. Grandpa Harold's eyes moved past me, toward the front windows, toward the driveway. His expression shifted in a small way, confused first, then focused. He looked back at me. "Evan," he said, not angry, just puzzled. "Why'd you come in an Uber?" The room changed temperature. "That's the only way I can describe it," Grandpa continued, still looking genuinely surprised. "What happened to the SUV we got you for your birthday? 8 months ago, he'd handed me the keys himself. A gray Honda Pilot, still smelling like new plastic and clean leather. He'd said he wanted me safe, independent, not relying on anyone. It was the first gift in my life that felt fully mine. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I felt my face heat up, like I'd been caught doing something wrong even though I hadn't done anything. My brother didn't look up. He took a slow sip of his drink like this was a normal question with a normal answer. And then my mom smiled. Calm, practiced, almost pleasant. "Oh," she said lightly, waving one hand as if she were brushing away something insignificant. "Cole needed it more." No one moved, not my stepdad, not my cousin Tessa at the far end of the table, who froze with her fork halfway up, not even Cole, just silence, thick enough that I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I stared at my mom, still holding that smile, and waited for the rest of the sentence, some explanation that made sense. But she didn't add anything. She just kept looking at Grandpa Harold like she expected him to agree. No one filled the silence. That was the part that stayed with me. My mom didn't rush to explain. She didn't soften it. She just sat there, hands folded, like she'd stated a simple fact. Something obvious, something settled. Grandpa Harold didn't respond right away either. He stayed still, eyes on her, letting the moment stretch. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I kept my hands in my lap so no one would notice how tense they were. Finally, Grandpa said, "Needed it more? How?" My mom's smile tightened just a little, the way it always did when she felt questioned instead of supported. "Cole's car broke down last week," she said. "Transmission, completely done. He's got clients to see, meetings all over the city. Evan works from home. He doesn't really need a car sitting unused. She said my name like it was part of a spreadsheet. Across the table, Cole nodded once, still not looking at me. Like this had already been discussed, decided. I felt something sink low in my stomach. Not shock, not anger, recognition. Because this wasn't new. It just hadn't been said out loud this cleanly before. Growing up, Cole always went first. The front seat because he got carsick, the bigger bedroom because he was older, the nicer clothes because he needed to look professional. When we were teenagers, I saved for months to buy a used gaming console. My mom borrowed it for Cole's birthday party. His friends wanted to play. She told me I wasn't using it that weekend anyway. It never came back. When I asked about it later, she frowned like I was the one being unreasonable. You said he could keep it, she told me. I hadn't. But pushing back made me difficult, so I let it go. When Cole graduated college, there was a venue, a band, more people than I knew. When I finished my degree early with honors, we went to a chain restaurant on a Tuesday night. My mom said it was different, said Cole's path had been harder. I believed her, or I told myself I did. Now I was sitting there realizing my car had been gone for a week, and I hadn't even known how to ask for it back without apologizing. I didn't agree to that, I said quietly. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. My mom turned toward me, surprised, like she hadn't expected me to speak. Evan, it's family, she said. We share. Cole needed help. This isn't personal. Grandpa Harold's hands, which had been resting on the tablecloth, went very still. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Cole. He watched my mom like he was seeing a familiar shape from a new angle. Where are the keys? He asked. My mom blinked. What? The keys to Evan's SUV, he said. Calm, clear. Where are they right now? Cole shifted in his chair. They're at my apartment, he said. I drove it today. My chest tightened. Hearing it said out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't misunderstood. My car was gone because someone decided it should be. My mom stood up slightly, palms on the table. Dad, you're making this awkward. It's already handled. Cole will give it back when his car is fixed. When? Grandpa asked. No one answered. My stepdad cleared his throat. Diane said Evan was okay with it, he said, not meeting my eyes. I wasn't, I said, louder this time. You took my spare key while I was asleep. I woke up and my car was gone. I had to call an Uber to get to a meeting. My mom's jaw tightened. You're being dramatic. Grandpa Harold leaned back in his chair, slow and deliberate. Then he reached into his pocket and took out his phone. That movement changed the room. He didn't rush, didn't sigh, just unlocked the screen and scrolled like he knew exactly what he was about to do. I should have handled this sooner, he said, mostly to himself. Then he placed the phone on the table, screen up, and tapped a name. I watched the call connect, the small speaker icon lighting up, and I realized very clearly that whatever happened next was no longer about opinions. It was about records. Then I waited. The call connected on speaker after the second ring. Harold, a woman's voice said, professional and alert. It's late. This sounds important. It is, Grandpa said. His tone didn't change. I need 2 things handled tonight. My mom straightened. Dad. He lifted one finger, not looking at her. First, he continued, I need my 2023 gray Honda Pilot reported for unauthorized use. The vehicle was taken without the recipient's permission. The word unauthorized landed quietly and heavily at the same time. My brother's head came up. What? And second, Grandpa said, I need you to email Gerald and schedule an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. There was a pause on the line. Understood, the woman said. Do you want me to contact local police regarding the vehicle now? Yes, Grandpa said. No hesitation. My mom's face drained of color so fast it startled me. You're calling the police? She said. On your own family? Grandpa finally looked at her. I'm calling them about theft. Cole pushed his chair back slightly. This is insane. Grandpa, it's just a car. We're family. That's exactly the problem, Grandpa said. Family doesn't take what isn't theirs and then tell the person who was wrong to be quiet about it. He turned his phone face down, ending the call, and folded his hands like the decision was already complete. I felt strangely calm. My heart was beating hard, but my thoughts were clear. This wasn't chaos. It was order finally showing up. "Dad," my mom said, lowering her voice like she always did when she wanted to sound reasonable. "You're overreacting. Evan will be embarrassed. This will cause problems." I looked at the table, at the plates of food going cold, at the napkin I hadn't touched. "I've been taking Ubers all week," I said. "I didn't want to make this a thing." Grandpa nodded once like he'd been waiting to hear that. "You didn't make it a thing," he said. "You endured it." He turned to my brother. "Do you have the keys on you?" Cole hesitated, then slowly reached into his pocket and set them on the table. Both sets. The sound they made was small, but everyone heard it. "Where's the car?" Grandpa asked. "My apartment," Cole said. "Riverside Flats, Unit 3C. Grandpa nodded again. "Good. That makes this simple." My stepdad stood up halfway. "Harold, maybe we don't need to involve police. Cole can bring the car back tonight. This is family business." "If it were," Grandpa said, "you would have asked Evan first." Silence again. Different this time. Heavier. Intentional. About 15 minutes later, red and blue light flickered across the dining room walls. It reflected off the window glass in slow pulses. No one spoke. Grandpa stood and walked to the door before anyone knocked. He opened it calmly, like he was expecting guests. Two officers stepped inside. One older, steady, one younger, already holding a notepad. "I'm Harold Bennett," Grandpa said. "I reported unauthorized use of a vehicle." The older officer nodded. "Can you explain the situation?" Grandpa did, clearly, chronologically, no emotion, just facts. He explained the purchase, the birthday, the intent, the spare key, the week-long absence, the Uber rides. My mom tried to interrupt once. The younger officer held up her hand gently and kept writing. "Who currently has the vehicle?" the older officer asked. Cole raised his hand slightly. "I do." "Did you have permission from the person the car was gifted to?" the officer asked. Cole didn't answer right away. "No," he said finally. The officer nodded like that settled something. "Mr. Bennett," he said to Grandpa, "what outcome are you seeking?" Grandpa looked at me. That was the moment I didn't expect. "Evan," he said, "it's your car. Your call." Everyone turned toward me. My mom's eyes were pleading now. My brother looked scared. My stepdad looked tired. I thought about it carefully. "I don't want to press charges," I said. "I want the car returned tonight, both keys, and I want it understood that this doesn't happen again." The officer nodded. "That's reasonable." He looked at Cole. "You'll return the vehicle within 2 hours. If you don't, this becomes a formal report. Understood?" "Yes," Cole said quietly. The officers left soon after. The lights disappeared from the windows. The house felt empty in a new way. No one spoke. I sat there, hands folded, waiting for the sound of an engine in the driveway. And for the first time, I wasn't apologizing for it. The door closed. The house settled. Plates of food cooled on the table, untouched. The clock over the sink clicked forward with exaggerated clarity. No one offered to eat. No one suggested anything practical. We were all waiting, whether we admitted it or not. My mom broke first. "Are you happy now?" she asked, turning toward me. Her voice wasn't loud. It was tight, controlled. "You made your grandfather call the police on his own family." I kept my eyes on the table. "I didn't make anyone do anything." She shook her head. "This could have been handled quietly." I nodded once. It could have, if I'd been asked. That stopped her for a second. Grandpa pulled his chair back and sat beside me instead of at the head of the table. It was a small shift, but everyone noticed. "This is where things change," he said calmly. "So we're going to be precise." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He laid things out like steps. "Step 1, he said, holding up a finger. "The car comes back tonight, both keys. No debate." "Step 2, he continued. "There's a family meeting tomorrow. Not a discussion, a meeting. We're going to talk about patterns. My mom scoffed quietly. Patterns. Yes, Grandpa said. Patterns. Step 3, he said. There will be consequences that don't rely on Evan needing to defend himself, because that hasn't worked. I felt my chest tighten, not with fear, but relief. My stepdad rubbed his face with both hands. Harold, maybe this is too much all at once. It's actually overdue, Grandpa said. My mom stood abruptly. You're punishing me. No, Grandpa said. I'm setting boundaries. You're reacting to them. She turned toward me. You could have just shared. I finally looked up. If you'd asked, I would have. That was the truth. Clean and simple. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. There wasn't anything left to say that didn't make things worse. Time stretched again. At 9:41 p.m., headlights swept across the living room wall. I stood before anyone said a word. Grandpa put a hand on my shoulder. You want me with you? No, I said. I've got it. I walked outside. The night air felt cool and steady. The gray SUV rolled to a stop in the driveway exactly where it used to sit. Cole stepped out slowly, like someone approaching a difficult conversation he couldn't avoid. He held both sets of keys out in his open palm. Tank's full, he said. I filled it. I took the keys. They felt heavier than they should have. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't think it through. I let Mom decide for me. You should have asked, I said. I know. He hesitated. I'm paying you back for the Ubers, all of them. Send me the receipts. You don't have to. I do, he said. I crossed a line. I nodded. That was enough. He walked away to a small sedan parked down the street. I got into my car, and started the engine. The familiar sound settled something in me. Grandpa stood in the doorway, watching. I drove home quietly. The next morning, my phone rang at 10:18 a.m. Meeting's done, Grandpa said. The paperwork's finished. I sat down on the edge of my bed. What paperwork? I asked. There was a brief pause. My estate plan, he said. And we need to talk about it. But not over the phone. I stared at the wall, phone warm in my hand. Family meeting, he added. 1:00, my place. Then he hung up. I set the phone down and waited. I got to Grandpa's house at 12:56 p.m. The driveway was already half full. That told me everything I needed to know. My mom was inside, sitting stiffly on the couch with her purse on her lap like she might leave at any second. My stepdad sat beside her, hands folded, eyes fixed on the floor. Cole arrived a minute after I did, looking tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. Grandpa sat in his chair near the fireplace. A folder rested on his knees, thick, labeled, Final. Thank you for being on time, he said. His voice was even. Let's sit. No one argued. He didn't start with opinions. He didn't ask how anyone felt. He started with facts. Last night, he said, I had to call the police because my daughter took property that didn't belong to her and gave it to someone else. That is not a misunderstanding. That is a decision. My mom crossed her arms. I already apologized. You didn't, Grandpa said. You said you were sorry Evan felt hurt. That's not the same thing. He opened the folder. I asked Evan to write down instances where his belongings or boundaries were overridden in favor of Cole, he continued. I expected a few examples. He slid a paper onto the coffee table. There are 19. My brother leaned forward, eyes scanning the page. His face changed as he read. The console, Grandpa said calmly. The laptop, the graduation, the vacation room, the car. My mom shook her head. I was just trying to help. Always at Evan's expense, Grandpa said. That's the pattern. He paused, then continued. I met with my attorney this morning. My will has been revised. The room went completely still. I'm not cutting anyone off, he said. But I am protecting Evan. He explained the structure slowly, clearly. No threats, no emotion, a restricted trust, income, not control, conditions tied to behavior, a clause that redirected assets if boundaries were violated again. My mom stood up. You're punishing me. I'm responding to evidence. Grandpa said. She turned to me. Is this what you wanted? No, I said. I wanted my car back, and to be asked next time. Cole spoke then, voice rough. This is on me too. I took things because it was easier, because I could. He looked at me. I'm sorry, not just for the car. No one interrupted him. Grandpa closed the folder. Here's what happens now, he said. The structure stands, the rules are clear, and the taking stops. He looked at me. You don't have to be easy anymore. No one argued after that. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Grandpa stood, signaling the meeting was over. The conflict didn't explode. It settled. The meeting ended without ceremony. No one stormed out. No one tried to argue one last point. We all just stood up slowly, like the room itself had decided we were done. My mom left first. She didn't look at me on the way out. My stepdad followed a few seconds later, his hand hovering at my back like he might say something, then dropping to his side when he realized there was nothing left to add. Cole lingered. I meant what I said, he told me quietly, about paying you back, and about stopping. I nodded. I know. He hesitated. If I mess up again, call me on it. Don't wait. I won't, I said. That seemed to settle him. He left without another word. After the door closed, Grandpa and I were alone in the living room. The folder was still on the coffee table, exactly where he'd placed it. He didn't rush to put it away. You okay? He asked. I am, I said. And after a second I realized it was true. He exhaled slowly. I should have noticed sooner. You noticed now, I said. That matters. He nodded. Then carefully, he slid the folder back into his briefcase and latched it shut. The sound was quiet. Final. We didn't talk much after that. He made tea. I rinsed out my mug when I was done. Normal things. Grounding things. I left a little after 2. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. Not to work, just to organize. I pulled up my bank app and totaled the Uber charges. I forwarded the receipts to Cole. He sent the money back within 10 minutes. No comment, no excuses. Then I changed a few things. I updated my passwords. I disabled the spare key code to my apartment. I moved important documents into a single folder and labeled it clearly. Not out of fear, out of clarity. Around 9:30 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A text from my mom. I love you. I hope you know that. I read it once. Then I set the phone down. Love didn't need a response right now. Boundaries did. I made dinner. Something simple. Ate at the counter, cleaned up as I went. Later, standing at the sink, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked the same. Nothing dramatic had changed, but the air felt different. Quieter. More mine. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and went to bed without setting an alarm. The next morning came without tension, and that was how I knew it was over. A few days later, I stopped by Grandpa's house on a quiet afternoon. No meetings, no folders, just normal time. He was in the kitchen, rinsing strawberries at the sink, the radio low in the background. I sat at the table and watched the water bead on the fruit, the way it always had. Nothing about the room had changed, and yet, everything felt settled. I changed the locks, I said casually. He nodded. Good. I organized my paperwork, I added. Another nod. No commentary, just approval. We sat for a while without talking. That was always our best rhythm. Before I left, he handed me a small envelope. Inside was a copy of the title transfer paperwork. Dated, signed, clean. End of the year like I promised, he said. But I wanted you to have it now. I folded it once and slipped it into my jacket pocket. Driving home, I noticed how quiet my thoughts were. No rehearsed explanations, no preemptive apologies, just lanes, traffic lights, familiar streets. At home, I did something small but deliberate. I put the car keys in a bowl by the door, not hidden, not guarded, just placed. That night, I cleaned my apartment slowly, no rush, music low. I wiped the counters, folded laundry, threw out old papers I'd been keeping, just in case. There was nothing left to defend. A week later, a friend called me about a work situation. Someone borrowing his equipment, not asking, just assuming. I listened. asked a few questions, gave him the same advice Grandpa gave me. Be clear once, I said. You don't have to explain twice. He went quiet on the line, then thanked me. After we hung up, I made tea and stood by the window, watching the city settle into evening. It occurred to me then that this wasn't the only story like this. There were a lot of quiet people out there. The reliable ones, the flexible ones, the ones who don't make waves until someone takes too much. If you're one of them, you're not wrong for wanting your life to be yours. You're just allowed to say no. If this story felt familiar, take a second to like the video and subscribe. It helps these stories reach the people who need them. And if you're watching right now, tell me what city you're in and what time it is where you are. I read those more than you think. 2 more stories will be coming up next, ones that a lot of people have been asking about. Until then, take care of yourself and keep your keys where you can see them.